Welcome to the 2025 Meet the FiReStarters panel. It's not a panel, it's a pitch session. So I am very excited to introduce you to our 2025 FiReStarter companies. These are companies that are using technology to change the world for the better in some way. There's a broad ecosystem of companies that have been FiReStarters in the past, and you'll see that the FiReStarters this year are no different. They are covering a wide range of topics, but they're all really incredible. So the way that this works is many of these companies are fundraising, not all of them, but many of them. And we will also be holding a reception this evening from, I don't want to misstate this, 5 to 7 p.m., right outside. There will be delicious heavy appetizers for dinner and a full bar. So we want you to have a great time talking to each other, talking to them, asking them any questions that you might have about their companies. And I would encourage you, if you're not yourself an investor, to think about who are the people that I know or the companies that I know that might be able to help these companies. FIRE is a community that succeeds when we support each other. We succeed because of the network that is here today, but also because of the network that's not here today. And so I just want to encourage everyone here to think of these companies. Our job as a community is to support these companies into the future. And for many of the reasons that we've talked about today and in general, the success of startups is not guaranteed, right? It's an extremely long and challenging road to be successful as a startup company, especially in some of these areas where the technology is new or innovative or harder to explain to people. And so I think it's important for this group to think of ourselves as we are joint shareholders in these companies, right? And so let us support their work today, but also in the future through connections and through your willingness to tell your friends about what they're doing and to help them make the world a better place. So next up, we have Skip Technology, building safe, reliable energy storage for a warming world. And here to talk about Skip is Benjamin Brown, president and co-founder.
Friends, fellow FiReStarters, fire attendees, I'm Ben Brown. I'm president and co-founder of Skip Technology. Skip Technology is a company headquartered in Portland, Oregon, working on long-duration energy storage with safe, non-flammable, domestically producible products. Okay, that's what we're doing. Fine. Why are we doing it? We're doing it because climate change is the greatest problem facing humanity. It's a huge problem, an existential crisis. But it's not hopeless. It's a human problem. They're human solutions. Those solutions take a long timeline. They don't work well for quarters or presidential cycles. It's a problem on decades to centuries, but it's one that's been unfolding over decades and centuries, and one that we can take meaningful action for now. One of the most important steps to addressing climate change is to reform our electricity grid, as we were talking about earlier today. Our grid needs reform anyways, and this presents a tremendous opportunity. I want to tell you about that. I want to tell you about why we think we can help make a difference to it and how we think we should go about doing that. So let's start with what we have coming ahead of us. The electricity grid that we have had has for years had a stable demand. It's been pretty well saturated due to advances in efficiency and advances in the technology we use on a daily basis. We're in the middle of potentially unprecedented growth. After decades of stability, predictions right now are for 2 to 4% per year of demand growth. That's a little bit through things like growth of computing, but also just through the electrification of everything. The fact that you may have an induction stove in your house, an EV vehicle in your driveway, and a heat pump to heat and cool your house, rather than things powered by fossil fuels previously. The predictions right now at 2 to 4% would take us from a rough use right now of about 4,000 terawatt hours per year to a use in 2 decades of between 6 and 8,000 terawatt hours per year. If you tried to do that by building things on the grid, you'd have to build 300 nuclear power plants just to cover the delta between the two predictions in that time. There's one nuclear power plant currently operational in California, Diablo Canyon, and the big arguments are whether we keep it online or retire it early. We're not doing it that way. It's also very hard to build gas power plants. The lead time for those is about 4 years right now because of the turbines. The thing that you can build quickly and at scale is solar power. And for solar power to work, it has to be paired with storage. So the future is solar and storage on the grid, widely deployed. You see this in China. China just deployed something like 290 gigawatts of solar in the last year, as much solar as the entire United States grid has on it. So you can deploy this stuff fast and at scale when there's a demand. The thing that you need for solar is energy storage. You need to be able to take the energy at midday and move it to later. The challenge right now is that we don't have energy storage that lets you store it and operate through your evenings. You have enough to cover 2 to 4 hours of demand. It's hard to cover a half day or a full day of demand. We call that long duration energy storage. That's the problem that we're working on. Our company, Skip Tech, is working on a next generation flow battery. Flow batteries are a lovely technology. You store chemicals in tanks and bring them together into a reactor to extract the energy. The tanks can be sized to your demand, so if you need twice as much energy, you make tanks twice as large. Twice as large tanks does not cost you twice as much. We're very good at building chemical tanks as a society, and as long as the chemicals you put in them are easy to acquire, domestically sourceable, and not your limiting factor, then you can make these batteries very big. And the bigger they are, in some senses, the cheaper they get per unit of energy stored. That's the promise of flow batteries. A challenge of flow batteries is that at the very heart of flow batteries, you typically need membranes that limits the chemicals you can address. We have our technology and IP around that. We remove the membranes and we use fluid dynamics instead. It's called a membraneless battery. We do it in a hydrogen and bromine chemistry, which ends up being a lovely high energy density, high power chemistry. We've got some pictures of it up ahead, a rendering of what kind of a containerized unit would be as we move into commercial and industrial sales for rural communities in particular, and a cartoon of how the insides work. The goal of these are that they're sort of shipping container sized. A small one supplies your small business or your ranch or your vineyard or your farm. A larger one backs up your community. A 20-foot shipping container could power about 30 US homes, may power your volunteer fire department, possibly a small hospital or other resources. Tens of megawatts, getting into kind of small data center scales. You're talking about stacks of these containers. And at a few gigawatts, sufficient to power a municipality, that can be done by repurposing existing natural gas infrastructure, coming in and using the existing infrastructure and building chemical tanks and flow cells there. That all gets to be into the imagined future in a real sense for these technologies till you deploy them. These technologies can be domestically made and have huge impacts in the US, but they have an opportunity to also have huge impacts globally. And our world as a whole needs new solutions. The world is warming, the world is electrifying. We have a chance in the parts of the world that are the developing world to let them leapfrog the utility grids that we have built and build resilient microgrids supplying their demand. Throughout Africa, you have incredibly good solar. You have incredibly poor transmission by and large. If you have solar and storage in villages, you can electrify Africa. To do that, you need storage that can survive a warming world. The map behind you shows places in the world where on certain days you exceed the safe operating temperatures of lithium, 35 degrees Celsius for this map. And for the dark red portions of this map, more than 200 days a year are spent above those thresholds. Our battery works extremely well at high temperatures. It's non-flammable, and it works up to about 60 degrees Celsius. It is an ideal battery for the warming world and especially for the equatorial world. Africa, the Middle East, India, the United States, Australia, South America all needs new solutions, and we are positioned to be the energy storage provider for the world. Please come and talk to us during the reception or afterwards. My team's here with me, our CEO, Maddie McCleary, Joey Haber. All of us would like to talk to you about ways you could help us in making the world that we all want to live in. Thank you very much for your time. We'll end there.